What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be discussing a rumor that's come out for the Chicago Bulls, and that is suggesting a potential Zach LaVine trade to the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Detroit Pistons have been in and around the conversations in the past, and that obviously does lead to a lot of people believing that this deal could potentially happen. But it's very interesting to see the rumor that the Bulls and the Pistons have had conversations about a Zach LaVine trade, but also what is likely the Bulls would want from a Zach LaVine trade to the Detroit Pistons, and we will be discussing these things in this video. But before we get any further, if you liked the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and whether or not you believe a deal with the Pistons can be done. Now, first and foremost, we do need to discuss the rumor itself. What exactly is the rumor? Well, the rumor suggests that the Bulls and the Pistons have had conversations about a trade with Zach LaVine and are having discussions with a potential trade for Zach LaVine. But it's also come out that the Bulls want certain players in return from the Detroit Pistons. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get all of these guys. That's physically impossible. But the guys that have been in the conversation are Cade Cunningham, Asua Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Bogdanovich for the Detroit Pistons. Quite a few number of guys there, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if I had to take a guess, you're most likely going to get two of those guys. You're definitely going to get Bogdanovich, in my opinion. Again, the age issue and playing for Detroit, that could be something that they see as valuable to get rid of his contract already. Plus, he does make a fair chunk of money for the Detroit Pistons, and we would need to match salaries with them in my eyes. So it does make sense that he goes. He's a good offensive player, not a great defensive player, but can still produce good catch and shoot abilities, good three-point shooting. Not a bad player to have on the Bulls team for at least the season. So I'm not too upset about that. But then you turn to the other guys. And is it even possible to get any of these guys? Well, let's discuss it. First and foremost, get the thought out of your head right now that we are going to get Cade Cunningham. It is not going to happen. Again, Cade Cunningham is a terrific player for the Detroit Pistons, the best Detroit Pistons player, and there is no way they would pass up on the idea of Cade Cunningham and Zach LaVine playing together rather than trading for each other. That makes no sense. I'm 99.99999% sure Cade Cunningham will remain on the Detroit Pistons if Zach LaVine gets traded over there. It just doesn't make sense. In an ideal situation for Detroit, it makes no sense. And I think the Bulls are a little bit crazy for even suggesting anything of the sorts when it comes to Cade Cunningham. It's just not going to happen. Get the thought out of your head right now. But the other guys, I think, could potentially be possible. It just depends on the situation the Bulls are looking at. Let's talk about Jalen Duren, for example, because this is the one that I think is second least likely to happen. Why? He's a center, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a pretty solid center build at the moment. Nikola Vucevic as the starting center for the Chicago Bulls. I know he has a lot of weaknesses. I know people are not too fond of him, but he is a center that we recently paid. He's a center that I can't see going anywhere this season unless we want a drastic change in the center position and decide to trade Vucevic away. That's the only way I can see Duren coming into this team and fitting in for the Chicago Bulls. But until then, he's not going to want to play on the bench for this Bulls team. He'd rather probably start in Detroit. And there's a good conversation about whether or not we will be keeping Andre Drummond. So we just have a loaded center position in my eyes. It's stacked for the most part for the backup and the starting center case. And I just can't see that going anywhere this season. So that's why I think Jalen Duren is the least likely outcome. And plus, he's the Detroit Pistons' best big man. Probably the Detroit Pistons' second best player. I don't see a world where they want to give him up in a deal for Zach LaVine either. But then you turn to the two other guys. And this is where there's a very interesting conversation on our hands. Let's talk about Jaden Ivey. Averages 14 points per game, has started a couple of the Detroit Pistons' last few games, has played very, very well, and is a player that Bulls fans love, in my opinion. Now, Jaden Ivey for Zach LaVine seems like a very unique idea, and I think the Detroit Pistons would be open to the idea of trading Ivey away from the Detroit Pistons, and there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, there was a lot of controversy throughout the season about Killian Hayes starting over Ivey, and how Ivey wasn't getting the opportunities he needed to shine with the Detroit Pistons. And at the end of the day, there has to be some merit to that. I mean, Detroit Pistons fans were blaming the coach for a long time there about the fact that Ivy was getting less and less minutes, and they still do complain about their coaching staff, just like the Bulls do, to be fair. So at the end of the day, if Ivy doesn't necessarily get the opportunities to shine for Detroit, maybe a new environment would be best for him, and a new environment would be best for both teams involved. But in the defense of that statement, Ivy has played well recently. He has started games recently. And maybe this is the late but very important lesson for Detroit to learn, that Ivy seems to be the guy, in my opinion, that they should be starting over a Killian Hayes. But there has to be a conversation there. But just in case it wasn't clear to Detroit, I do see that as a potential avenue for the Bulls to pursue, where they're going to get a definite starter in Zach LaVine over in Detroit, and you've got a guy in Ivy that is a terrifically good transition player, one of the fastest players in the league, very athletic, and is a pretty solid scorer with 14 points per game. Can't complain too much about that. And of course, you've got to remember the addition of Bogdanovic in there as well. And all of a sudden, there's a couple of good pieces there that you could work around. Some younger guys and some older guys, and you can make your decisions from there. So an interesting point for Ivy. But Asua Thompson for me is the most interesting player to talk about, because I think if you're in a win now situation, you probably shouldn't be going after Asua Thompson, because he is a rookie, and rookies normally get a pass for everything just based on the fact that it's only their first year and there's a lot of time to work and develop on them. But in a win now situation, you're probably not looking at a guy like Asua Thompson, because he has some good components, but he also has some bad components to his game. But if you're looking to go younger, that's the guy, in my opinion, is one of my favorite guys to go for, because he fits a primary position that I've been talking about for a while, and that is the forward line. Not the forward line, the forwards, the wing positions, the power forward and small forward positions. And we need more depth in that department. That is where I truly believe we are sorely lacking, because it's clear Dalen Terry is someone that is not viewed in that way to be a backup for a hefty amount of minutes. And Julian Phillips, I haven't seen him in ages. I just haven't seen him. Julian Phillips is athletic. If he get his body right, he could probably play in those forward positions, but I don't know where the guy is. So how can I assume that he'll be NBA ready? Asua Thompson could definitely fit a need in that department for a younger Chicago Bulls team. I love his rebounding. His rebounding, in my opinion, is best quality. That is his best quality. His rebounding. And again, that fixed a very big issue with the Chicago Bulls. The rebounding battle is something we do not often win with the current lineup we have now. Even with Patrick Williams in there and all, we are not an amazing rebounding team as a collective unit. I think Asua Thompson can fix that very quickly. And also, if you provide the shooting around him to succeed, for example, because his weakness is the three-point line. He is very poor from the three-point line, and he has a under 40% field goal, under 50%, field goal percentage. I think it's around the 40% range. So it's not great field goal percentage, and a not great three-point field goal percentage either. Both very poor things. So his offense is probably his weakest part of his game, even though he does average 8 points per game. But if you could get a lineup out there with Kobe White, Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, and even Nikola Vucevic as the center position, all of a sudden you've got four guys out there that could potentially shoot the three ball a little bit better than what Asua Thompson can. And then all of a sudden, you allow a guy like Asua Thompson to do what he does best, and that's defend at a high level, especially for his first year, and rebound the ball. Two things he's very good at. And then he can have the room to improve and hopefully get better in all the other areas, which is an absolute must if we go for this guy. So an interesting guy in Asua Thompson. And I think the Pistons would get rid of him for Zach LaVine. Because again, they need to switch things up. There was even conversations about Asua Thompson not getting a whole lot of minutes these days. Up and down. Again, Detroit just in general are up and down. I don't know what they do. And I don't see consistency in their team. Some games Asua Thompson starts and plays amazing. Some games he doesn't even play. You know what I mean? It's that type of situation with Detroit over there. And that's why I think Ivy and Asua Thompson are both guys that we could potentially get in a Zach LaVine trade alongside of Bogdanovic. But also, you got to remember, Detroit are tanking, I would say. And it's not going to be easy to get rid of those types of guys for them, considering where they are. But they definitely need a shift and a change in their roster. So we'll wait and see if Zach LaVine is the answer for them. But I'll take both those guys. I'll take all those guys. Heck, I'll take every single one of them. But what do you guys think? Thank you for watching. Drop a like and a follow. And or subscribe if you are new. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care. And peace.